Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to actually look at 2 articles, both of whom are, I guess you could say, lightweight attacks on Jey Uso. Now, what occurred is Jey Uso got himself over, and as typical with WWE, if you get over, the Wrestling Observer crowd, the Fightful crowd, those people are not fans, and they will absolutely turn against you. So within hours of each other, there have been 2 articles stating that Jey Uso probably shouldn't get pushed, that his character development is stalled, all of this sort of stuff. There's 2 articles we're going to be looking at. One is from Daily DDT. It is entitled, Jey Uso is over but lacks character development. It was written by Rafael Garcia and published May 15th, 2024. The other article, which is a lot more damning, is why this is the biggest superstar WWE must never push. It's by Michael Hamflett from May 17th, 2024. It is about Jey Uso. So let's go over the Daily DDT article first. So we're not going to go through the entire thing, clearly, because it's 2 articles. I'm not going to go through both of them in any real detail. But here is the biggest element that comes out of this thing. News has come out that WWE is looking to, quote, manufacture similar reactions to Backlash in France. This was a Fightful report. They nuked him from orbit. Soon as that came out, all of a sudden everybody hates Jey Uso and the fact that he pinned Ilya Dragunov. So news has come out that WWE is looking to manufacture similar reactions for the star, and that statement that should cause pause. Whenever WWE looks to control an element, it usually leads to a situation where it feels just as forced as it really is, and thus said element is no longer cool. The real concern when it comes to Jey Uso should be more about his character development. He started out as a multifaceted member of the bloodline, struggling with his loyalty to the family, the carnage his cousin was causing, his love for his brothers, and his friendship with Sami Zayn. From there, he became someone pushing to break out of the shadow of being a tag team champion, looking to find glory on his own. Now it's yeet, 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 and more yeet. So, they're basically saying that Jey Uso has been gone down to just being yeet. That's it. That's all he does is yeet. And I think that if you actually look at the character development, you could tell that this is almost the pinnacle of Jey Uso, because the goal when this whole thing started, if you pay attention to the character development within the storyline, Roman made the comment, the "which one are you" comment, and that was at the very beginning of Roman's title run when Jey Uso was his first challenger. It was always about individualizing Jey, individualizing the Usos, period. But Jey especially. It was about showing people that he's more than just being a twin. He's more than a tag team guy. He has some chops as a singles wrestler. But he continues, WWE loves its catchphrases. This one hasn't had the best impact on Uso in some ways. Yes, his shirt is flying off the shelves and he's getting paid off that. But is there longevity there? Think about some of the performers already mentioned. He lists Rollins, Reigns, Rollins, Sami Zayn, Becky Lynch, etc. They may have had a catchphrase or 2, but their character was much more developed than that. Jey Uso's isn't quite there yet. Can it grow past yeet? Sure it can. And in reality, it must, if this hot streak is going to continue. Well, stories eventually have a conclusion. And it's hard to go beyond once the story has concluded. You want to ask about the longevity of Jey Uso yelling yeet every week? Yeah, you can question that. That's a legitimate concern. You can say, hey, this character used to have a lot of layers. It's like, but those were situational. When he was in the bloodline, he was, trying to figure out his relationships to all these different people. But now he's on his own. He can't have the same response, the same, natural reactions. Those things are in the past. Like, you have difficult relationships and you get over them, and once you're over those relationships, you are who you are. This is the Yeet element is a celebration that he is free from the bloodline and free to do his own thing. And I don't expect it to go much further beyond this. But the next article, because this one was very short, and Daily DDT just basically asked a couple of questions about the longevity of Yeet and WWE trying to make it uncool because they're going to try to manufacture it. Okay, but wanting people to copycat is not manufacturing. You know, they want people to chant yes, so they have everybody do yes. Is that manufacturing? Yes, because, you know, that's what you do with the audience. You tell the audience what you want them to say, what you want them to do, and then they do it. And then they say it. And that's it. But the What Culture article from Michael Hamflett, this is the biggest superstar WWE must never push. This one is it is actually pretty funny how obsessed these guys are with literally one thing: wrestling matches. It's literally one thing. That's all they care about. So this What Culture guy starts the article putting over, you know, how over Jey Uso is. The Fireflies in France, all this sort of stuff. And then he'll say, you'll see endless one-word replies, Yeet posted and shared joy rather than cynicism, thanks to how fun it is to have some monosyllabic nonsense to giddily throw into the word soup, destroying society as we knew it on X. That's Twitter for all of you people. You'll also find those same enthusiastic fans acknowledging that he just doesn't have the matches. They'll argue exactly how important any of that is when the other stuff is so good, but they won't. But the blinkers on when you dare to assert that his WrestleMania 40 match with his brother Jimmy was one of the biggest turkeys of the year. Yes, and nobody cares, man. I don't understand what's wrong with these people. They think that this stuff matters. It doesn't. Literally, the least interesting part of wrestling is the in-ring part. The vast majority of people who watch wrestling understand that the in-ring part is the least important part. It literally is. You know, so I don't understand why people insist on thinking that the in-ring stuff is the most important when character development, storyline, etc. makes the in-ring stuff more important. The matches become more important if you actually care about the people involved. Jey Uso got people involved. So let's get into this. We're going to read a couple of passages from it, but my goodness, they are trying their best to not be disrespectful and be sourpusses, but they can't help themselves. So here is his issue. The problem with fantasy booking Jey Uso at present is that real life has reflected how little of it actually pays off successfully. He once again talks about the WrestleMania match with Jimmy Uso, which he says, the match with Jimmy at WrestleMania 40 was terrible, but to call it a disappointment would be only half the story. Those within the company and Jimmy and Jey themselves might have felt like it didn't live up to expectations, but most fans have tempered their excitement for the contest itself based on prior evidence of what the ceiling was for them in singles action. He then goes on to say that basically Jey Uso is just an entrance. He says, quote, it's been a while since the disparity between the two sides of a performer were as large as Jey's. The packaging of his entrance isn't merely great in the way that the New Age Outlaws or Enzo and Cass were. The catchphrase isn't just as hot and fun as Yeah has been for LA Knight in spite of his bell-to-bell shortcomings. Now they're attacking LA Knight too. They just don't think anybody is good, for God's sake. Yeet and everything bouncing off those four letters really is bigger. It's oddly defiant, like Jey himself from the moment he split off from the bloodline. It's a statement of his individuality, which I just said. And he says, and thus why Roman Reigns hated it so much and insisted Jimmy try and stomp it out forever. Then I'm going to skip a couple of lines. He says, it's much closer to yes than yeah, but Uso is nearer to Knight than Daniel Bryan between the ropes. Various online observers have compared Jay to a WWE era Jim Duggan, and it's magnificently apt. Chants of "Ho" and USA were guaranteed when Hacksaw hit the ring, but he needed them more and more when it became clearer how little he had left to offer in his matches. He was a beloved babyface nonetheless, who, like Jay, made his signatures work as more than just methods of call and response. They just compared this man to Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It's disrespectful to both Jey Uso and Jim Duggan. Very disrespectful. For starters, it completely erases that Jey Uso had an entire career before he started doing this. You know, the same thing with Jim Duggan. You know, a lot of people don't know about Jim Duggan and like Mid-South and some of the other stuff that he's done, which is why he said WWE era Jim Duggan. But ultimately, people love Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And the whole USA, it endured for so long that he didn't need to do anything else because he was over. He was still over when he was doing it in 1998. He was still over when he was doing it later in the 2000s. There is nobody who dislikes Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So if your job in wrestling is to get over, Hacksaw Jim Duggan did that. And he was able to make the rest of his career. And he made tons of money off of being Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So why would you disrespect Hacksaw Jim Duggan by belittling him like that? That's crazy to me. So let's continue. He says, he never needed to be near the title picture. He's talking about Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Because there were bigger star baby faces in his spot. His act was perfect for bringing the noise at house shows, and with a few wins here and there, he could be propelled to a level that could help advance a heel. Here in 2024, if Uso's not fighting for a belt or fighting to get to fight for one, he'll be perceived as failing. Unfortunately, those aforementioned fights have been when his act becomes exposed, and he looks like a man who needs to return to tag team wrestling, where his working skills are seemingly best exhibited. So we need to put Jey Uso back into a tag, despite the fact that he's super over by himself. We need to put him back into a tag team because matches. See, this is why you can't listen to these people, right? This is a absolute brain dead take. Absolute brain death. To sacrifice all the financial opportunities and to sacrifice everything that you've done, the story that you've told, just to put him back in tag team matches because you think, oh, well, he's at least a good tag team wrestler. I mean, this is insane. It's pretty insane, brother. But not just that. Let's continue with his thoughts. It says, at this point in Uso's run, the main character motivation isn't about reliving or relitigating his past, but searching for a brighter future. That's why you can't put him back in a tag team, smart guy. But okay. He talks about people screwing him out of big matches, championship matches. He says WWE are again faced with solving the problem of seeing through this long babyface quest while simultaneously confronting the reality that the matches can so rarely follow the exhilarating entrances. So, because again, he doesn't have good matches, despite the fact that he's over and he's, selling a bunch of merchandise, that doesn't matter. What matters is wrestling matches. It's like, bro, there's 100 people on the fucking roster. That can do wrist locks and arm drags. There's nobody else who can do what he does. Never mind. Let's just keep going. It has been an impressive long-term story for Jay at this point, and one that has ultimately led him to becoming one of the most overperformers in the industry, regardless of what he can and can't do when the bell rings. It stands to reason that by telling an even longer one, the company can land on a match and a moment that justifies all this momentum. So then he actually suggests, and this is top tier stupidity, he actually suggests that Jey Uso win the Money in the Bank, but he suggests that he cash it in for the tag team titles. This is big brain what culture? He thinks that he should win the Money in the Bank, waste the Money in the Bank briefcase by giving it to Jey Uso, who then uses it to cash in on the tag team championship. That's what he is suggesting here. This is ridiculous. All right, now I'm floored. All right, I'm floored at this. But I want to tell you guys this hilarious story here. I want to give him a chance to try to properly explain why this would be a good idea. All right. So he says, quote, if Jey uses this golden opportunity to reforge his brotherly bond with Jimmy and the two topple whoever two members of the bloodline by that time hold the gold, it would complete a saga within a saga within a saga and make good on the mania and magic of Yeet. Jimmy and Roman embracing it will be enough of a pop, but the brothers embracing while holding the tag team titles on the grandest stage takes the reunion to its natural end. It's not just what WWE should do, it's what Jey Uso, a good person, just wanting good things for the other good people in his life, would do. More is always more in wrestling. And if there's one thing better than an Uso leading thousands in a chorus of yeets and flailing arms, it's two. The argument is that you should reform the bloodline, as a babyface, group with Roman and Jimmy and Jey. But Jey should team up with Jimmy again and win the tag team championships. That's completely backwards. The only way that you fully make use of what Jey has been doing here is for him to win a singles championship. It's the only way that you can make this make sense. That's the only way you could take this thing to the next level. He doesn't need to be Intercontinental Champion for 800 days. He just has to win it. It's literally that simple. I'm not saying he should be the world champion either. He has to win the Intercontinental Championship at the very least. He's got to win something. Now, maybe he wins the King of the Ring. I don't know. But he needs to win something because the story is about how he doesn't need the bloodline. That's the story. That Jey doesn't need the bloodline. He can do it on his own. To turn around and decide, well, you need the bloodline, is putting him right back where he started. You can do that. You can do the, Jimmy and Jey, they're going to reform with Roman. You could do all of that after Jey finishes his story, which is that he can prove that he can win championships on his own. And the story that they've been telling with Jey in these matches, whether it's for the Intercontinental Championship, the World Heavyweight title, his matches with Roman Reigns, is that he gets really close and then he gets screwed. This is, of course, teasing, pulling it away, teasing it, pulling it away, so that eventually he'll get it. That's the game plan. And I thought that perhaps the best option would be for Jey Uso to win the World Heavyweight Championship and lose it to Drew McIntyre at Clash at the Castle. I thought that's the best booking arrangement because I'm not thinking about what would be a great match because that's the least important part of this thing. Nobody cares about that part. All right. Sid probably never had what you would call a great match, but he main evented both the WrestleManias that he was in. Everybody talks about how awesome Sid is. Nobody questions his work ethic. Nobody cares. The Ultimate Warrior made tons of money. Couldn't really work at all. Goldberg. We just go list these people off. Jey Uso isn't as bad as they are. Okay? His matches are not great because he's still trying to figure out how to do them on his own. The guy was a tag wrestler for 20 some odd years. All right? And during that time, you'd be hard-pressed to find a Jey Uso singles match. But now he's found a character, a gimmick, I guess you could say, more than a character. And it makes the matches easier because people care about him more. He can still do 3 moves, 5 moves, whatever. His psychology needs to get better. Now, the match with, Jimmy was bad because they have the same move set and they really didn't properly think the thing through. Jay claims that, oh, well, we didn't have enough time. They cut our time, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that. Not relevant. Part of the problem with the Jimmy and Jay story was that it's a natural story, but it felt like the air was taken out of it before the match even happened. A lot of the grand build-up between the two didn't occur, and there was so much that really wasn't quite linking, So by the time the match actually happened, it was like, okay, this is kind of what everybody wants to happen, but it's not exactly something that you absolutely are super excited for. Jey Uso can have the same amount of moves as Randy Orton in the WWE, but Randy Orton will have better matches because Randy Orton knows how to position himself. He knows how to, psychologically how to get to those 5 moves that he does. Jey Uso is still trying to figure that part out, but he's over. And that helps tremendously when it comes to anything. And these guys who are saying that his character development is done and you have to do more with him, you have to make him multifaceted. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Okay? He can't be tag wrestler Jey Uso again. And if you think that, okay, well, the only thing we can do is just add Jimmy to the group, it's like, now Jimmy's riding Jay's coattails. I don't know about that. It could be in the future. Jay is the reason why the bloodline reforms and he's with Roman and Jimmy and everything's great, which is, I think, ultimately the end game. But you have to prove within this story that Jay could do it on his own because that's what Jimmy has been trying to prevent. And that's what Roman stated from the beginning. So you have to make Roman correct that Jay can do it, that he is going to be the reason why Jey Uso becomes main event Jey Uso. And you have to have Jimmy reconcile the fact that Jay can do it on his own and doesn't need him. But Jay wants him there. And he only can do that by having Jay win a championship on his own and not putting him back in the tag team immediately. If he wins a championship and then loses it, then he at least got there. At least he's proven that he can do it at least once. And it gives the fans a level of catharsis. So the idea that because of his in-ring style, he shouldn't get pushed. Well, now you're trying to create a Zack Ryder situation. Remember, Zack Ryder was a guy that, he was super over, but nobody really talks about Zack Ryder's matches, right? Whenever they want to talk about how bad Vince McMahon was, that, he didn't listen to the audience. He didn't push Santino. He didn't push Zack Ryder. It's like, okay, were you looking at those matches? Zack Ryder was not having like banger-ass matches at the time, all right? He was over because of some shit happened on the internet, but at least he was over. And Vince paid that off by giving Zack Ryder a championship. Now, it wasn't a long 500-day run, but he won the championship. Kofi Kingston got over. Vince paid that off by giving him the championship. Triple H has to do the same thing. You have Jey Uso here. He's the most over babyface on your roster. It's your fault that Sami Zayn is the Intercontinental Champion. It's your fault, Triple H, that Damian Priest, at time of recording, is the World Heavyweight Champion. And neither one of them is more over than Jey Uso. That's Triple H's fault. He could just as easily have Jey Uso win one of those belts, and you have storyline reasons to take the belt off of him. The bloodline takes him, attacks him, he loses the belt. Drew McIntyre attacks him, takes the belt, whatever. but he has to win it. So the idea that you must not push Jey Uso is absolutely incorrect. You must push Jey Uso. You don't have a choice. Could you imagine this guy being this over and you just decide, oh, we're going to keep him here and then we're going to put him back in the tag team? That'll kill everything that you've been trying to do here. It'll kill the storyline you've been telling. I don't suggest he wins the Money in the Bank. I think you give that to somebody else. Preferably LA Knight, but this guy doesn't like LA Knight either. So you're in a position where you got this super over star, you got to pay it off. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.